Hi there, in this video I'll be talking about quadratic equations. What is a quadratic equation and how do we solve the quadratic equations? Before we go into the details, let's first try to understand what do we mean by a quadratic equation. Any equation that can be written as ax squared plus bx plus c equal to y. This is the general form of the equation, because in a quadratic equation the highest power of x has to be 2. So this is applicable here. So this is the general form of quadratic equation, and the condition is the coefficient of x squared cannot be 0. So a is not equal to 0. So in this equation, a, b, c are integers and x and y are variables. Now we'll consider two cases. Case 1 when a is positive and case 2 is when a is negative. First consider the case 1 where a is positive and have a look at the graph here. So the shape of the graph is a parabola. It's a U-shaped graph, and you can see here the curve is intersecting the x-axis at 2 points. So when we solve quadratic equations, the purpose is to find out the points at which points the graph is cutting x-axis. Yeah, so it's a parabola and U-shaped. So case 2, when we consider the graph, it is inverted U shape. So it's again a parabola but inverted U. And here again we find two values of x for which y is 0. So we have this equation here, ax squared plus bx plus c equal to y, and the graph is shown here. You can see x values are highlighted here. Our purpose is to find the values of x for which y is 0. So the parabola is intersecting x-axis at these 2 points. The purpose is to find out these values. So we put ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So instead of y, we put it as 0. Now our purpose is to factorize the left hand side so that we can find the x-intercepts of the parabola. So what we do is we write ax squared plus bx plus c equal to x plus something times x plus something equal to 0. So we get two factors, and once we factorize the left hand side, it's easy to get the x-intercepts of the parabola in the graph of the quadratic equation. Our first example is we need to factorize and solve 2x squared equal to 32. So here we try solving it and we rewrite the expression as 2x squared minus 32 equal to 0. Next step would be to divide both the sides by 2. So we get x squared minus 16 equal to 0. We divide both the sides by 2 because then the expression is actually gets simplified. Yeah. Then we rewrite the expression as x squared minus 4 squared equal to 0. Now why do we do that? Because our purpose is to use the formula x squared minus y squared equal to x minus y times x plus y. So this helps us to factorize. So we can rewrite the expression as x squared minus 16 equal to x minus 4 times x plus 4 equal to 0. Here x minus 4 times x plus 4 equal to 0. So these are the two factors of quadratic equation, and this gives us either x minus 4 is equal to 0 or x plus 4 equal to 0. So this when simplified gives us x equal to 4 or x equal to minus 4. So we can say y is 0 when x is 4 or x is minus 4. Have a look at the graph here. The curve is showing the parabola is there and the curve is intersecting x-axis at x equal to 4 and x equal to minus 4. We can easily say y equal to 0 when x is 4 or x equal to minus 4. So you can see here factorization of quadratic equation helps us to solve it easily and faster. In example 2, we need to factorize and solve 10x squared equal to 5x. So we rewrite the equation as 10x squared minus 5x equal to 0. Next step, you can see 5x is common to both the terms. So we can take it out so that in the bracket we are left with 2x minus 1. So we have 5x times 2x minus 1 equal to 0. This gives us either 5x is 0 or 2x minus 1 is 0. Let's now solve 5x times 2x minus 1 equal to 0. That gives us either 5x is 0 or 2x minus 1 is 0. So when we simplify, we get either x is 0 or x equal to half. So y is equal to 0 when x equal to 0 or x equal to half. Have a look at the parabola here, the graph for the equation. So here the quadratic equation, again the shape is a parabola, and y is 0 when x is 0 or x is half. In example 3, we need to factorize and solve x square minus 7x plus 12 equal to 0. Now this is not as simple as other two examples. Let's have a look how do we solve it. So we compare it with the general form of the equation and try finding out the values of a, b and c. So when you compare it with the general form of the equation ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, you get a equal to 1, b equal to minus 7 and c equal to 12. Now next step is to find the product of a and c and write the value of b. So a dot c, which is a multiplied by c, gives you 12 and b is minus 7. Now this step is important because after this we need to find out two integers. We need to think of two integers whose product is 12 and sum is minus 7. So think of the numbers. Here we have various possibilities, but the rest are not giving us both the conditions to be satisfied. Only for two numbers, which is minus 4 and minus 3. When we multiply them, we get 12, and when we add them, we get minus 7. So these are the two numbers, minus 4 and minus 3. So when we write it as, you can check here, minus 4 times minus 3 equal to 12, and minus 4 plus minus 3 gives us minus 7. So this satisfies our condition. Now we move to the next step. We can rewrite the equation now as x minus 3 times x minus 4 equal to 0, because minus 3 and minus 4 are the two integers that satisfy our conditions, and we can show this polynomial to be the product of x minus 3 and x minus 4. So when we solve it further, we get x minus 3 equal to 0 or x minus 4 equal to 0. When simplified, we get either x is 3 or x is 4. Now this representation of minus 3 and minus 4 can also be shown like in the table I'm showing here. So you just need to multiply the rows and columns to get the same equation. And here is the graph for the given equation. So you can see here the curve is intersecting x-axis at x equal to 3 or x equal to 4. So it's easy to solve the quadratic equation by using factorization. In our next example, we need to factorize and solve x square minus 5x minus 14 equal to 0. So next step would be to compare it with the general form of the equation. When we compare it, we get a equal to 1, b equal to minus 5 and c equal to minus 14. Now the next step is to find the product of a and c, which is minus 14 here, and b is equal to minus 5. We just write the value of b. Now the next step is to think of two integers whose product is minus 14 and sum is minus 5. So for this we have to consider various possibilities. These are different factor pairs, but we can see here only one is possible, which is 2 and minus 7, because you can see 2 and minus 7 when multiplied give us minus 14, and when they are added we get minus 5. So x plus 2 and x minus 7 are the factors here. We can rewrite the equation x square minus 5x minus 14 equal to 0 as x plus 2 times x minus 7 equal to 0, because just now we got plus 2 and minus 7 to be the integers that satisfy our condition. So we use these integers to form factors. So we write x plus 2 times x minus 7 equal to 0. We can also express it in the tabular form if you find it convenient. Some students prefer this method, so we can express it in the tabular form and get the factors. Now once you have the factors, it's easy to simplify. Now either x plus 2 is 0 or x minus 7 is 0. So that gives us either x to be minus 2 or x is 7. So when y is equal to 0, x has to be minus 2 or x can be 7. Have a look at the parabola now. Now this curve is intersecting x-axis at x equal to minus 2 and x equal to 7. So we can easily say y is 0 when x is minus 2 or x is 7. In our next example, we need to factorize and solve 5x squared plus 13x minus 6 equal to 0. So again we compare it with the general form of the equation ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, and we get a equal to 5, b equal to 13 and c equal to minus 6 when we compare the equations. So now the next step is to find the product of a and c, and we write the value of b. So a times c gives us minus 30 and b is 13. So now we need to think of the two integers whose product is minus 30 and sum is 13. Have a look at the factor pairs here. So you have various possibilities, but only one is working here. So we have minus 2 times 15 giving us minus 30 and minus 2 plus 15 giving us 13. So minus 2 and 15 are the required integers. So now we can rewrite our equation. Have a look here, 5x squared plus 13x minus 6 equal to 0. So we express 13x as 15 minus 2x because 15 and minus 2 are the required integers. So have a look at this expression. Now in the next step, what we do is we consider the two terms separately in red and the last two terms separately in blue. You can see here from the first two terms we can take 5x common. So in the bracket we are left with x plus 3. And from the last two terms we can take minus 2 common and we are left with x plus 3. So in the last expression here you can see x plus 3 is common to both the terms. So next expression what we do is we take x plus 3 common. In the bracket we are left with 5x minus 2 equal to 0. So now either x plus 3 is 0 or 5x minus 2 is 0. So that gives us x equal to minus 3 or x equal to 0.4. So you can see here solving quadratic equations becomes easier and it's faster once we are able to factorize the left hand side. So this method really helps us to simplify and solve quadratic equations. Let's review the key points now. First point is in the expression ax squared plus bx plus c equal to y, we put y equal to 0. Second point is factorize the polynomial on the left hand side. And third important thing is we put each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. I hope by now you have understood what do we mean by a quadratic equation and how do we solve quadratic equations using factorization. Anything not clear, you can write in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. Thank you. Have a good day.